feel much more about making sure you don't fall behind on tempo, but get that quest done as quick as possible.
That's right. I think there are outliers in the matchup where the one player can run away with early tempo, usually has things to do with drawing double lightning bloom and the other player not drawing perpetual flame. That can be a pan out, but I think the far more likely pan out is both players draw their mix of tempo options and removal options as the deck is built, and it then becomes a race to who can complete the quest first. And when you have that license to play Bru'kan into the first double charge call, one of those first kind of show-stopping plays, the charge calls, the vivid spores that you probably generate by then it's probably too much for the opposing shaman to beat down, even if they have their own Bru'kan played.
Well, starting things off, it is a lightning bloom in the hand for Bankyugi. Always what you want to see. I think it is just eternally in pretty much every matchup the highest mulligan win rate card because of allowing you to get so much tempo and turbo out that quest completion so much faster. Two of them, though, is a little bit more suspect. I'm not sure how you're making use out of this quite yet. Hopefully all will become clear when the Primal Dungeoneer comes down.
It's so awkward. If one of these 3-cost cards overloaded too, I think it's reasonable to just go for the all-in game plan if that's what your hand is telling you to do. But the thing is, it's only 2 procs on the quest when he needs 3 to actually unload the overload, which means that if Bankyugi went and played his whole hand this turn, yes, he would have like a 2-drop and a 2-3, but that's not very high tempo, and he'd have 0 mana the next turn. So it's gonna have to be wait here.
Okay, you can just take it nice and slow at the moment, as long as Posesi doesn't pop off with his own big bloom quest completion turn. I do think Bankyugi is perfectly happy just playing out his Primal Dungeoneers for the moment.
Yeah, Dungeoneer always great to get that cycle going. It's worth noting that what Posesi has cut to make room for Tidal Surge is the double entrapped sorceresses that Bankyugi is running. So even though, like you said, tempo is not necessarily the way to win the matchup most of the time, anything that can generate you more overload cards or more things that are good post Bru'kan, I think, is more to your advantage. So I do think Bankyugi's list has the upper hand, but maybe not his opening hand, because Posesi has guidance. He has this investment opportunity to maybe get him a bit faster towards quest completion.
And so what are we thinking here for Posesi? Because obviously there's just Coin Canal Slogger is the most obvious play on this turn to get ahead on board, get some of that quest ticks done. But playing the investment opportunity, there's quite a few good cards that you could get coined out all of the 3-cost cards. Obviously, Lightning Bloom would be very powerful as well.
It's true. I was thinking that it would be one of these 1-cost cards that is not revolve, which both involve branching paths, right? So between the draw you get off of the investment and the discoveries you get off guidance, there's a decent chance you would actually have some way to spend that last mana. But Posesi looks like he's not willing to take that risk. Going to be as efficient as possible with his mana, which is also very important for completing the quest. Bankyugi picking up the Serpent Shrine is a big, big deal now, though.
This is much more like it, and even with the pretty unimpressive 3-drop there of just a 2/2, he gets that really nice effect of being able to unlock the previous turn's mana crystals and delete Bloom's mana crystals this turn. So I'm just thinking, it could be Bloom Canal Slogger plus Charged Call even on this next turn for a 5-drop, which is, you know, the sweet spot in the mid-game before you get up to 8 or 10.
Yeah, that is pretty busted. Especially since it looks like Posesi's taking a turn of just a slow, unreactive, no proactive plays. He is just going for, I guess, a bit later of a quest completion, because he had the chance to go for that first tick of quest, but it looks like he's valuing the unlock of the overload to be a bit more impactful, perhaps depending on what he can get off of guidance. But it looks like Bankyugi's gearing up for one of the plays that you mentioned potentially. I can see the reasoning for holding on to Charge Call if you want to get greedy with it. There's a Vivid Spores as well.
Never sleep on Vivid Spores. Yeah, I mean, I do think it's probably the pick here, but even so, like, I guess maybe I'm overestimating the chances of hitting the uber nutty 5-drops, but that was such a high tempo play he could have gone for. And again, as I said, it's not a pure tempo matchup by any stretch of the imagination, but it doesn't hurt in these early games when your opponent's just doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there are only specific hands that they can actually respond to your average 5-drop, which I guess has 5 health. Like, they need to have double spell damage with their Perpetual Flame, which is a lot to ask for in the early game. So maybe there was room for Bankyugi to get experimental there, but looks like he has kind of decided that the pan out of the matchup is more reliant on who gets the better post Bru'kan, in which case he probably wants to save the charge call. For Posesi here, the Bolt is quest progression, and it's cheap, so I like it.
Yeah, it lets you get another proc of the Fire Heart. Makes sense to me.
But I wonder if he uses Bolt to cycle Fire Heart further, or just plays Novice Zapper with it so that he can get rid of the 6-4 immediately. You miss out on 1 spell generation, but you're still proccing quest because you play the Zapper as well and still spending all the mana.
I think that makes sense.
Or you could just take Studies, because that cheapens the Zapper and you potentially get another chance at a removal spell, but it's of course not guaranteed to be Bolt or Flame by then, so Posesi just not getting too greedy with it here.
Ooh,
Flame.
Perpetual Flame? Yeah, we're snapping that up every day of the week.
Speaking of...
Ooh.
Bankyugi. Okay.
Maybe even just start Charged Call, right? And I mean, if you're playing it this turn, you could obviously just not play it and try and go for an 8-drop in the next turn or two.
Yeah, I think we know what kind of gamer Bankyugi is. He's going for Charge Call and Vivid Spore same turn. Ideally post Bru'kan as well. And I think he has the license to do it, right? Because he's still super ahead on tempo here. He's ahead on quest completion. Yeah. I think this is the sweet spot between making sure you don't fall behind in the early game and saving enough value for the late game as well.
Okay, you know what? I will rescind my judgment for the moment. I think that maybe I've been allured by the, in previous plays, people getting Earth Elemental, which would obviously have just won the game. But without that, yes, it's not that much better than the Sorceress a lot of the time. And as you say, if you can get double 8-drop, double 10-drop, you are just winning the game.
Posesi redirecting all the focus from his camera into his mind, because this is a difficult turn. You do want to go Perpetual Flame, but that annoying and trapped Sorceress is not guaranteeing the full clear. Like, you could do it with Hex, but that's so expensive. I don't think Posesi can afford to spend that much mana. Oh, unlucky that it stops the train that early, though.
Yeah, you really wanted to get a little bit more clear than that.
However, having only 3 overload next turn means that he still has some flexibility with a follow-up. The heal from the Slogger is also pretty relevant here. Make sure he doesn't fall that far behind. Bankyugi has a sweet overdraft opportunity here.
Yeah, he does. He does. What, Serpent Shrine first and then overdraft, I guess? To just get maximum use out of it. And then you have 3 more mana, so you could follow up with Storm Strike?
True. Or the Charged Call, which will be... Is it 7-drop by that point?
I think it'll be up to 8.
It's 7 right now. Okay.
Yeah.
That's another relevant breakpoint.
Yeah. Yeah.
8s are sticky. Like, and some of them mess with your opponent's mana. I've gotten a fair amount of 8 mana 5/5 from Hunter, Beastmaster, Leorox when playing Druid for Cenarian Ward, but maybe Bankyugi can do a little bit better. It's worth noting that the 8-drop pool got slightly worse with Flesh Giant moving to 9, but I think it's still quite good.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, but in Bankyugi's full greed in it.
Man, he's just going aggressive, getting damage faced, like, and going with the burn, but... As you said, he is determined to save this charge call for a double activation with Bru'kan later on.
My only issue with that is he's actually missing 1 more overload spell to do that really smoothly. So if he misses on the immediate overload draw, then maybe he is just going to end up on the charge call a turn later, which obviously feels a little bit weaker. But he still ended up with a combo, which is very nice indeed. Posesi with that much overload is also not looking pretty good. But oh my gosh, the Perpetual Flame. That's just Bru'kan now.
That is the nuts. He will then have 7 mana next turn, so we'll still be able to go Charged Call Vivid Spores.
Yeah.
And, I mean, to be fair, like this is what he has set up for the entire game, and it's a very interesting factor that we don't see all too much because of Charge Call being such a unique card, where it's such an interesting balance to strike between immediate payoff or ultimate win condition. Because if the way he set this up, he got a little bit lucky, you know, to be able to get all those overload cards, but he orchestrated an ultimate win condition. When he does this, there's no road back in for Posesi. Realistically, he's just too far ahead unless a miracle happens with devolving. I guess maybe Revolve can get there. But it's a super powerful win condition, as opposed to having played a 5-cost minion 4 turns ago now instead.
Yeah, I think it's because there is a real big difference between, I mean, 5 cost on turn 5 feels like it would be as strong as 8 cost on turn 8, you know?
Right.
That type of relative back and forth. But the thing is, with Shaman, Perpetual Flame is a very, very big deal, as you can see here. 5 drops can get within range of this sometimes, especially with the 8 of spell damage, whereas 8 drops don't get there. I mean, Charge Call does not get there against 8 or 9 drops. Alex?
Yeah, probably Alex over the Sleepy Dragon, actually, isn't it?
I want more attack. I mean, you're gonna Vivid Spores anyway, so...
Yeah, exactly.
Blackwing, hello!
That'll do. That'll do very, very nicely.
Burn in the robes into oblivion.
Posesi's got like 5, 6 overload even. Man, it's even worse than I thought. Hex not even a possibility. So a 10 cost is going to have to get the job done. That does, from his perspective, keep him alive. But a Swift Hex will make Bankyugi the winner. A very interesting game, and definitely completely different to how I would have played it from Bankyugi. And honestly, I just don't know whose was better. Like, the way it was probably Bankyugi in the end, because he's set up for such a strong win condition at the end of all that tempo he'd gained at the start. But maybe he could have just won the game like 3 turns earlier if he'd taken a higher tempo approach.
It's possible. I think there were maybe 3 separate turns we were talking about Charge Call before he actually went for it. The first turn, I think it was smart to hold back because he could have had like way better stats if he had gotten at least a couple more overloads. The second time was when it was like, I think very, very tempting, but maybe weak to the one outcome of your opponent having Perpetual Flame double spell damage, which is not likely, but it's not 100% game winning, right? And then the third time, which was right before Bankyugi was unsure whether or not he could actually complete his quest and get Bru'kan the next turn. I thought that was when it was best, right? Because he didn't have a guaranteed good alternate play the next turn if he didn't find that overload. But he did find it, and so everything worked out super smoothly that he was able to get the Charge Call after the fact. But one thing that we can't deny is that all the way through the early game, he knew he was ahead, right? So he had that option to hold on to the Charge Call, which I think is the most important point to recognize.
Yes, exactly right. What do you do with the information that you're winning? Do you press your advantage to try and lock it out as soon as possible? Or do you say, okay, I'm winning throughout the mid-game, so I can just be greedy? It almost felt like he was, you know, in Battlegrounds just leveling up each tavern because he was just winning anyway. Like, he didn't need to try and double down and deal more damage in the mid-game. Was that an appropriate Battlegrounds analogy? Did that make sense?
I mean, it's usually right if you're winning that hard to just level so you make sure you win the lobby. Because a lot of the time, if you just double down on the advantage, you might kill some people and get it down to top 4 really quickly, but you might not necessarily end up first place. But anyway, back to standard.
Back to standard indeed. I was just wanted a moment of praise for my horrendous Battleground skills. But either way, moving over to the Mage for Posesi, a matchup that I think should be working in his favor. One of the reasons why I do think Mage is a reasonable bring this week, again, is that counter to Quest Shaman. Because if you're just going all aggro decks, you're not going to have any way to counteract this. But the Japanese players with this Mage in their lineup, I think, should be giving themselves a decent chance of getting the win against the Shaman, because those kind of plays from Bankyugi, you know, as strong as they were, even though he got a good hand that game, he'd kind of be forced into making these higher tempo plays against Mage to get to kill them before they do their ultimate win condition on turns 8 or 9. But even then, Mage just has so many tools to freeze, delay, get through it all, that I think Posesi should be in a great spot.
Yeah, I think the matchup is very Mage favored, and I love the mulligan from Posesi. Actually, it's not to the point that we're seeing people toss flow. I heard that happened in some other region, didn't really get to see it. But with the nerf to flow, you often have to have a contingency plan for when you don't get it, and also because it's at 3 mana, a lot of the time you're not able to play it that soon, even if you do get it anyway. So keeping things like First Flame to make sure you don't get beat down by the early Feral Spirits type of threats, and then the Arcane Intellect to make sure he just has some form of draw. And the best part is both of them are different spell schools to progress his quest, I think is a very, very good understanding of how to play the averages as Posesi.
I mean, this hand just absolutely blitzes through the quest. My goodness, with Barrier, Flurry, Brain Freeze, like, this is an Arcana spell away from quest completion in hand, right? This is everything he needs.
It really is, because the first plane doubles up.
Right.
It's perfect.
It's insane. Play this Slogger. Brilliant. First flame, second flame. You can just play a Flurry or a Brain Freeze as well, just for the hell of it if you want.
I don't even think he needs to play the Flurry. I would like to say maybe the Brain Freeze over second flame. Well, I don't know, actually.
Let's see what the draw.
It's just... Yeah, let's see what the draw. It really depends on what spell school he feels will need to be used next turn. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're just doing that, right? You can Flurry. That's probably still just fine. You have all the tools you need to get through the quest.
Yeah.
His hand is busted.
I mean,
oh my god.
Yeah. He needed an arcane spell, and he got the very best one.
Yeah.
It's not a matchup where holding on to flurries is the end-all be-all, just like versus handlock, where you need to make sure you freeze the giants every turn. Like, this Canal Slogger, aside from Bru'kan, all of the natural minions in the deck don't have higher threat than this, so it's fine to just freeze one minion.
Oh my god. It's just kind of good for Posesi that more threats are being played. And Spiced Bread Baker, a disaster as well. I can respect Bankyugi for trying to get some higher health options, but he knows this is just going disastrously wrong.
This is turn 6 Varden.
It actually is as well. Oh my god.
Okay. Another flurry.
Flurry? Yeah, I think
cheap.
That's... Yeah.
I mean, Posesi's about to get Varden right. He just wants to make room in hand with the Cram Session, honestly. So cheap spells are a big A+ for me.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Oh?
Yeah. Wow, okay. I was going to say, maybe if they don't play anything, you can't dump it, which is the downside. But if they don't play anything, you're winning anyway. I did not expect Evocation, I have to be honest.
Me neither.
I guess just saying he's winning so hard anyway.
He just needed this to be the arcane spell, right? Is that what he's missing?
Oh, because he doesn't want to play Cram Session.
Oh, sorry. Was he missing fire? Okay, now I'm confused.
Oh yeah, he had studies. He didn't even need that.
Yeah, okay. I thought that was the spell school he was missing, but something tells me he absolutely will not have time to play Evocation in the good sense, which is that he's spending all that time killing Bankyugi faster.
I think it's probably just an ultimate panic button. Like he's saying, I'm winning this game 99.9% of the time anyway. I do not care about anything my opponent does. So maybe if I just need, I don't know, a flurry to freeze their board, for example, I could get it off this Evocation.
That's a joke, right?
Yes, it is a joke.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Sometimes my sarcasm radar is broken. Really sorry about that. Okay, for Bankyugi, you know Varden's coming, so you are supposed to develop max pressure into that term, which I guess means Wind Fury. It's really not a lot, but no better options, quite honestly.
Yeah, play that, Brain Freeze, shoot face, like, this is burn damage time. Oh my god.
Hot streak?
Probably just hot streak, yeah. You just want the mana.
Just because he has infinite cards from this point on.
Wind Fury, unfortunately, does not stack, so we can't get some mental one-maker lethal.
Just carvings?
Mm.
The most pressure he can get this turn.
Thanks, I hate it.
You can overload as well.
Yeah.
What to do?
And it reminds me of that one time in Europe when somebody played runic carvings for overload when they absolutely didn't need to. This time it's just probably correct, even though they don't really need the rush.
Oh yeah, I think that was funny, wasn't it? Yeah. Just in a completely out of character moment. Really weird.
Well, you can see from Bankyugi's facial expression, he knows that this one is mostly lost, but such is the nature of LHS sometimes when your opponent has the complete freedom to queue their matchup of choice into the deck that they just lost against. It does go very back and forth like this.
It really do. Perfect hand space filling up here. Looks like it's a pretty bad selection of spells, actually, in all honesty, coming into hand. So I guess you can just clear up everything that you need to, or, you know, a couple of the bigger threats. Probably go with second Cantus Flow.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Oh, Shooting Star's pretty nutty.
Oh, that's illegal.
I was thinking it would be Ruined Orb face as opposed to One Thief because they both like give you more options, but the Ruined Orb is something you're almost certainly gonna want to do in the near future because it's killing Bankyugi faster. But Posesi says, I can win on board too as Mage.
I respect it. Just beat them down in all aspects. Crush their spirit. So, was it 1 out of 2 quest completion for Bankyugi? Could he go Perpetual Bru'kan?
It might be 2 out of 3. Oh, you're right.
0 out of 2, okay. So not quite yet. But next turn, set up for it. And, I mean, quite rightly, like, he knows that just turboing through his quest is his best chance. And then maybe if he can get Bru'kan into Instructor Fireheart, and then go just chain these burst damage spells, he might be able to get there. Honestly, I'm not even certain if attacking is correct. It probably is. You just have to hope that your opponent doesn't have a way to clear the board.
Oh, but little does he know they don't have to clear the board when they're just killing you. He's really an evocation gamer. I know. They're just a pretty color, Derek. Leave him alone.
Yeah, fair enough. He's in Posesi's happy space.
A Hot Streak, Ignite, another Ruined Orb, sure.
Oh, I imagine.
Hot Streak, Fireball, Ruined Orb. What if the Evocation's just lethal this turn? It might be there. What if we were stupid all along?
It might be, but it also might not be.
Mm-hmm.
Barrier? I guess, yeah, sure.
Just want anything he can dump, because I think he's going Flurry Evocation this turn. No? Then when are you going to Evocation?
I guess just dump all your cards this turn and then try and go for lethal next turn? Probably my best guess.
Okay. I thought it was good a shot as any for this turn. Because he could have spent... he could have had 3 mana not spent on ping and a second flame here. He could have had the Hot Streak for this Ignite face and then Evocation with what, 2 spare mana to find lethal there?
It seems like a lot of things that didn't matter happened this turn.
True.
Like, I didn't care about the entire half of that second half of that turn. I think that's just lethal though with Fireball off the top. So it didn't end up mattering at all in the end. He got the outcome that we knew was inevitably coming in. It just felt like a weird turn. Like he'd won the game and then he was just faffing about clearing 2-1s when he's at 36 health. Like, very weird.
I just wanted him to find lethal from Evocation so there would be some justification for picking it at least. But in the end, Posesi can't be bothered, just winning too hard. And even though that was an incredibly one-sided game, I still want to highlight the Mulligan from Posesi. You don't always see people keeping Arcane Intellect. First Flame, it's more of a no-brainer keep versus Hunter versus Priest, but it can just be good versus Shaman too because they are going to play minions. That's 2 fire spells guaranteed. It's getting rid of their, already slim chances for getting any pressure to beat you down in the early game. And the AI makes sure you don't run out of resources because even though sometimes you can get turbo quest completion, if you don't have card draw afterward, in that window you can sometimes get punished. But Posesi knew that in this matchup he had enough time to go for the card draw and go for 2 evocations apparently that never got played.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. Like the fact that it's not difficult to play fire spells against Shaman by any stretch of the imagination. Like Fire Sale is one of the best cards to get the board clear, but having 2 in 1 is just what allowed him to turbo through that quest so consistently, which is a great understanding of how you're winning that matchup. You just want to play your Varden before they play their Bru'kan, which very often will happen. You're much more likely to get it down a turn or 2 sooner, and then you just win. He knew exactly what he was going for, and so now Bankyugi has to counter with this. Still not sure exactly how to title this because it's not Celestial Alignment Druid. That is its own archetype with the Cthulhu, Gadgets, and Auctioneers. It plays completely differently to this archetype. It's Anaconda Druid plus alignment as a tech card thrown in there as well, which does serve a very specific purpose. It's to be very good against Warlock, but really it's just to counter quest decks in general, because again, the reward you get is the 5 mana 7/7. If you play alignment before they get that in hand, they can never play it, essentially, and you'll be able to pop off afterwards. I still question if that's worth a spot in this list when I think the Anaconda side of the deck, the main portion of the deck, beats those kind of decks anyway. It beats Warlock for the most part, it beats Mage, it beats Demon Hunter, it beats Shaman. Like all these quest decks, you're just winning against them anyway because you have such an unbeatably dominant mid-game when you get the Anaconda down. But I'll be curious to see if it can come into effect here.
I know Bankyugi's been playing a lot of this deck on ladder to great results. He's been streaming a lot of it in high legend ranks, sniping all the D6 warlocks. But I do agree, a lot of those wins just come off the back of Anaconda and the token portion of the deck. And the Celestial just kind of feels like the cherry on top of what's already a very delicious sundae, very favored. I don't really know where the Celestial fits in these other matchups. Like say if the Druid lands into Quest Shaman, does that help? Maybe, unsure. We do know that the shell of the deck is very similar to what Surrender was running, and he also had a very strange tech card in the Claw Machine. But you can see where his head is at, that this deck is all about Anaconda. That's going to be my tech, is helping me make sure I get Anaconda more consistently. And even though I don't quite have a fully formed opinion yet on which version of deck is better, it'll be interesting to see how they perform in each series. So moving on for Bankyugi here, he has quite a bit of ramp already in the opening hand and the option to turbo Celestial, but you often don't go for that if you don't have card draw / more ramp / Anaconda to back it up, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting hand, isn't it? Because even with the pickup of Glowfly, again, you probably just throw it down to make them play their Fire Sale if they have it, and again, if they don't, you probably just win. But it is a weird deck. It's not like the pure Celestial Alignment Druid, where if you had this hand, even without any card draw, if you just play Celestial Alignment against Mage, you probably just won. Because they can't do what their deck is supposed to do. They're going to struggle to ever get down the Varden and win through that route. But this way, you still need the card draw, which comes in the form of Guess the Weight. Problem is that after Celestial Alignment, Guess the Weight always only draws you 1 card necessarily. And so I think for Bankyugi, it's probably going to be a couple turns off, if I had to guess, before the Celestial comes down.
Ooh.
But maybe that changes it.
Man, there's so many ways to take this hand, right? You could just go for the Glowfly turn, like you were saying, make them have the Fire Sale, although it's probably not worth the risk, because if they do have the Fire Sale, it's like kind of wish you had the Glowfly to go with Arbor up at some point. If it is alignment, he has a perfectly reasonable Overgrowth turn next turn, and then use the Nourish for card draw. And if at any point he hits Anaconda, it's going to be very, very powerful. But maybe Bankyugi's just saying, I don't even need to alignment this game. Just hit Arbor up / Anaconda, and things are looking swell. But the next draw is Solar Eclipse, which is not particularly great with this hand. And he left mana spare to go for Overgrowth. But it looks like he's just aligning this turn with... Oh, okay, never mind. Sorry, I thought he played Lightning Bloom.
It looked like he was reaching for that, it did. But I think, yeah, if you can avoid being overloaded the turn after, it is a very, very big deal.
Yeah.
Posesi here, though, has played both Arcane and Fire, I believe. So just starting off with Brain Freeze is something I'm pretty tempted in, just to... or the Flurry. And then you still have a mana left over for Primordial at the end, I guess.
Perhaps he might not Fire Sale at all.
Really?
It's a little bit risky. But, I mean, he's never dead to this board, even with, like, Solar Arbor, right? And he is just going to clear more stuff. So it looks like he's just saving Fire Sale for if there is singular Arbor up. That's really good.
But what if there's Solar Arbor like that? I mean, I guess that's very specific. If they have that, you're kind of in trouble anyway, because they'll just do it the turn after.
Wait, but he actually just gets so much progress on the quest this way. Even with the last Fire spell as well. Another Fire Sale sounds really good in this matchup. Yeah.
Oh, I was kind of interested in Cone there, actually. I mean, I guess he has all the frost spells he needs with Shattering Blast, but it was tempting.
Bankyugi knew about this draw.
So I think now you do go with Celestial Alignment. Again, as I said, the crucial part is you have to play it before Varden is in their hand, or they play it for one, and you're in some pretty big trouble if they have Incanter's Flow to reduce all the cards in their deck to 0. Now, of course, Posesi still has Incanter's Flow. Every card in his deck costs 0, but without Varden, it's not quite game-winning.
Not just yet, but it can be quest completion. And then, you know, I wonder, now that his entire deck costs 0, does this even become a Varden game plan? Is it just shuck all the burn face now? Of course, any ignites he shuffles back will then cost 2, not 1. But Varden is just so far off from this point, right? At 5 mana, that I think deviating would make a lot of sense for Posesi.
Yeah, especially as there's a very good chance if Bankyugi finds the second alignment, he just plays it again to get you back down to 1 mana. Like, Varden is almost certainly never being played this game.
I'm surprised by his option on the spell damage, though, because it's... If I was saying Varden's far off, then the Steward of Scrolls is also super far off. Like, I find it unlucky that he didn't hit Lab Partner for immediate playing, but I would have taken at least Mini Mage. That's hard for Bankyugi to interact with.
Okay, Bankyugi just going all in on finding Anaconda right now. I think quite correctly going Nourish instead of Fungal Fortunes, because again, that one minion, if you discard it, it makes all the difference in the world. Ooh.
But I think he would take a Glowfly Solo the Forest here too.
Oh, what do you even... Yeah, I guess it's... Yeah, Glowfly Soul, and then you can go for Solar Arbor next turn. There's just so many strong plays. Like, it could have been Solar Cenarian. I guess this is just asking for specifically exactly double Fire Sale from his opponent.
Because of that, maybe it was potentially one Cenarian before you go Glowfly and then Soul of the Forest. That might have been a bit more durable. You miss out on nature studies, but big deal.
Well, Posesi does have it, so the game continues for another turn at least. Whether or not he can capitalize on that is another question.
Yeah, I don't really know. I talked about him just disregarding Varden altogether. Of course, he doesn't have a choice, but he needs to draw to actually burn down Bankyugi, and he doesn't have Cram Session, doesn't have AI, and without Varden, even if he does get Cram Session, it's hardly drawing him anything. This is just another Fire Sale install. By this point, the minions Bankyugi generates are probably bigger than Fire Sale can reach, right?
I wonder if you're picking Incanter's Flow specifically for the second Celestial Alignment when all your spells go back up to 1. I don't know if that's just being overly cautious. It may just be correct, as you're saying, to take Fire Sale. But if they play that second one, you're in some real trouble, and Incanter's Flow could potentially remedy that and give you some crazy OTK.
Maybe. I just thought he was in trouble right now, to the point I was looking at Snap Freeze, where maybe that lets him kill one more minion, but right now, Flurry Shattering already deals with your expected threat of Solar Cenarian, something like that. So in the end, it's just going to be the Fire Sale. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if it's just for the tradable effect of it. Cenarian Ward, 2 8-drops. It's Varian and Primordial Protector. Not the greatest, but enough to win.
Wow, letting rip with the Fungal Fortunes now. Praying, of course, that it isn't exactly Anaconda overdrawn. Posesi praying that it is. But he's safe for the moment.
Is he gonna align here again or just wait?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay.
I think it's super smart. This is what Posesi didn't account for with his play of going for the Fire Sale over the Incantus Flow, because the difference between the rest of his deck costing 1 and costing 0 is just light years apart.
Yeah. I think the alignment this turn locks out the possibility of Posesi finishing his quest, which then makes it such that Bankyugi doesn't have to be afraid of discounting the Varden. I was only hesitant because I didn't know whether Bankyugi would have immediate lethal the next turn with 1 mana, but he actually has 2 with this Lightning Bloom. So it's 13 plus Feral plus Arbor. Still a little bit short, but certainly enough to win the game over 2 turns. Not much Posesi can do about it.
Yep, just playing your highest value card and then setting up for Flurry plus Shattering Blast next turn. Does make sense.
Another Shatter. I don't know what Posesi can do, man. He's locked out by the Celestial alignments.
Yeah, it does look that way, doesn't it? We could see Ramp with Nourish and then... or Bloom, yeah, whatever.
Okay, I guess this order is the same if you are going to play both no matter... Oh, he's drawing! Okay.
Drawing for Anaconda, yeah. If you hit that, you don't necessarily just win on this turn, but you get pretty blooming close. And with Feral Rage, it's actually kind of close to just lethal.
Yeah.
He's got Fungal Fortune's
right?
Arbor up, so he can't draw a card, unfortunately, but very, very close to lethal. Boo.
It's a 0-0. Some European casters might say.
Time waits for no one. Woe betide those.
Just going through the motions here is Bankyugi. Filling up the board means that even if Posesi had double Flurry, it's not enough to stop lethal. And yeah, there is literally nothing Posesi can do on 2 mana.
And I'll tell you what this felt like from Bankyugi. This felt like a man who has played this deck a lot, specifically the Celestial Alignment version. I think his timing on both of them was... just showed he knows exactly how to play this matchup. The first one didn't go for it as soon as he humanly could because he realized that's not necessarily his win con. But when he realized the quest was about to be completed, right, we're snapping that. Even without Anaconda in hand, even without too much card draw in hand, he still realized it was worth it just to shut down the opponent's win condition. And the second one, again, he's ramped up all his mana. Doesn't matter. You still just reset, deny your opponent's win condition, and because of those great timings on the alignments, it was just a very clean win.
Yeah, point to this version of the deck at least if we are just going to be keeping tally on the Anaconda with Celestial versus Anaconda without. It could very well be that they both are just very favored against Mage no matter what, but for sure having that tech card in your back pocket to delete pretty much any even niche generation type of win condition they might have is a very big deal, right? Because Mage does open a fair amount of boxes and discover cards. Well, when you discover cards, they are their original cost, but you're at 1 or 2 mana, won't be able to afford to play and find your chains of freezes to somehow sneak out a victory. It's just not possible. And that means that Bankyugi is going up 2-1 in the series, and now Posesi gets his own counter queue into the Druid, which I'd have to imagine is a Shadow Priest.
Yeah, that is the matchup that, at least with the pure Celestial Alignment Druid that I've been playing rather than this Anaconda variant, you don't really want to see. There's a couple of things that go very wrong. It's, number one, they just play a lot of minions. That's your weakness a lot of the time. Neophyte is very, very bad as well. And then bloomin' Elusia, man. That one card just can absolutely delete your entire deck if they time it well. You know, you gear up for these big swing turns as the Druid, where you're going to go Anacondra plus the Germination, play all your cards, dominate the board. If they know when that's going to be, if their senses, their spidey senses are well tuned enough to know when those pop-off turns are going to come, Elusia, bang, you're out of the game.
Yeah, it's just so many different ways that the Shadow Priest can attack the matchup. Even without Elusia, if you just hit a double Void Touch to Tendon Start, oftentimes even just one,
right.
If they don't have the ability to kill it with Lunar Eclipse, or even if they wait a turn with a Feral Rage and they have to attack it, it's often done too much damage to recoup by that point. This Priest gets off to a very, very powerful start. We were talking about how aggro decks in general are the bane of these Anacondra-based Druids, but this one, above all, is the most threatening because it's all about the minion curve, which is absolutely what Druid does not want to see.
Yeah, just every card in here feels like a strict counter to you. Again, there's Neophytes, the Traveling Merchants. If it's just a 4/5, which is not even especially impressive, you just need 2 minions on board. Already, Druid just can't answer that. It's so difficult to get a response to that. You instead have to set up, of course, these big taunt turns with Anacondra and getting all those minions in play, but it's very, very difficult to do. So we'll see what Bankyugi's strategy is. The Mulligan becomes a little bit more difficult against aggro decks like this because again, you still want to find Overgrowth, you still want to find Fungal Fortunes to be able to proactively spend your mana, but you also kind of need to find the Lunar Eclipse just to be able to survive these early turns, like these plays that don't necessarily progress your game plan. So striking that balance between focusing on your own game plan and actually staying alive is not an easy thing to do, I don't think, as the Druid.
Indeed. But my oh my, this looks like a champion opening curve for Posesi here. I'm not looking at the tour guide at all. I think coin Neophyte into Kultiron, have the Elusia for worst case scenario. That wins games. I guess the worst case, though, is if you coin Neophyte. Actually, if you coin Neophyte, they can't even Lunar Eclipse it, right?
Right.
So it's just sticking, and then it's dealing 3 damage, and then it's going to have 4 health. And yeah. Oh, he throws Elusia, though. Okay.
Man, I don't know. I think I was just planning on going coin Neophyte Chaplain and then just play the Elusia. Like, what are they going to do? Play a minion of their own? You just hit them for 1 million.
Yeah. And then, you know, if you hit any Lightning Bloom, any Innervate, sure.
Yeah.
Amazing. Even if you don't, then you just get to, you know, play one of their removal cards very likely on their own thing that they play from your hand. I don't know.
Time waits for no one.
Well, either way, it's a fantastic start for Bankyugi. I will say this hand is about as good as you can hope to get in this matchup. Obviously, the Neophyte slows it down quite drastically, but just Fungal Fortunes into hopefully some kind of a pop-off, maybe drawing Overgrowth and then going with a big Anacondra or a Cenarian Ward turn. It's the kind of hand that can get there, absolutely.
True, but Posesi's hand is no slouch. He's going to get this Neophyte out of Lunar Eclipse range. It does mean that Bankyugi still has a Lunar Eclipse target, so if it's traveling the next turn, it's not that impressive. However, something tells me it's not traveling. It's going to be Auntie plus Wriggling Horror instead.
Yeah, old Oberhand, the Void Touch to Tenzin herself, just absolutely brutal in this matchup. Once you've seen that looked like the animation for an overdrawn card. That's Anacondra gone off of the Fungal Fortunes. Disaster for Bankyugi.
It's Bankyugi's potential avenue back into the game, right? If you could bloom out an Anacondra tempo like that, maybe force some trades, if not immediately copy it with Germination. But without that, I guess we're looking at a Glowfly game plan, but he doesn't have that many spells if he has to bloom it out, plus the overload hurts. But in any case, Posesi has picked up another option now with the Neophyte.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Slamming that down. No Glowflies for you, no Arbor Ups for you, nothing. You just have to skip another turn, at least in terms of answering the board. Just another Guess the Wait turn. For Bankyugi, if he can stomach this damage for the next couple of turns and is able to go ramp into Bloom Solar Arbor, like with the best possible 8-drops, it's not over, but Posesi has just hit the absolute uber nuts start. This is disgusting.
6 attack, 5 attack, 6 attack. Wait, sorry, I'm adding too much. I thought there was.
It's still a lot.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. It's still enough.
And that's it, right?
That's it. I mean, if he had one innervate as well, we could talk about outs from Cenarion Ward, but it simply isn't there.
Well, he can go Bloom, guess the way. Oh no, I was going to say then he can hit Lightning Bloom plus Innovate. Of course he can't because they cost the same mana cost. So there's no chance of even playing Cenarion Ward on this turn. It's just over. Even with nothing extra from hand. Bankyugi, he got hit with a counter today. So different from yesterday, Gia. It was just sweep after sweep, whereas today, I feel like when we introduce these more well-teched lineups from Gur and the Japanese players, we're seeing back and forth. Every deck has a counter, every strategy has a counter strategy, and it leads to these very, very close 5-game series.
I mean, that's just what you love to see in a meta. I think when every deck has a deck that it falls prey to, it can feel a little bit polarized, I suppose, which some people don't like. But in terms of how you craft a lineup for LHS in particular, I think it leaves a lot of room for the people that really know what to expect to shine. And having this well-teched lineup from Posesi definitely looks like it's doing its job. But Bankyugi, even though he doesn't have that balance of the 3 types of decks, he is able to kind of account for that with flexible bans, the way that Gur did a while ago, banning away an aggro deck instead of Warlock that you might necessarily expect to see. Bankyugi, however, is going to end up with what I'd wager is a favorable, because if you are bringing Control Priest to beat anything, it should be aggro decks. But even then, I'm not sure if it does it that consistently.
I mean, this is it. The oldest tale in the book. Light versus dark, good versus evil, shadow versus not shadow, with the Control Priest against the Shadow Priest. I think you are probably correct. This is the point of Control Priest in this metagame is, well, one is to have Mind Render Elusia in it, which maybe pushes some of the combo decks out of the game. But nowadays, if they're playing combo decks well, it feels like Elusia isn't even the catch-all that it was back in the day. But the main point, as you pointed out, is the anti-aggro capabilities. Double Desperate Prayer, still got Blademaster Samuro plus Apotheosis, Zyrella, Light Shower Elementals. This is an incredibly anti-aggro, high healing list that I think the Shadow Priest could really struggle against.
Yeah, I like this list a lot compared to what we were seeing from Shaxi yesterday. He had Control Priest, which I honestly don't know what role it was supposed to fulfill in his lineup, because I figured if you're bringing Control Priest, it should be your anti-aggro deck, or like Quest Shaman 2, for example, which means that you should still be running the Samuro package and as much healing as you can, but Shaxi was not. Bankyugi, however, is running that stuff. He is a Priest aficionado from way back in the day, and he has even the double Sethix in case he needs value. Not necessarily in this matchup, but I wonder if palm reading is too slow to keep against Priest, because it used to be that was a snap keep in almost every matchup.
Yeah, I do wonder. You're not being able to get, even the fact that you can't reduce your renews to 0 mana is such a big difference in the power of palm reading. Outside of that, though, an interesting full mulligan from Posesi, and he gets most of the cards he threw away back again with the Traveling Merchant and the Neophyte. But I kind of actually liked the look of that Traveling Merchant. It's an awkward shape for Priest to deal with in the early game if you can get it to about a 4/5.
That's true. And it's not as though Priest is looking to shoot down your small guys 1-for-1, especially when you're running Frazzled Freshman, which doesn't just die to a Holy Smite. I think it's pretty reasonable to get Merchant to a Yeti size. But for now, Bankyugi going to start off with the Pandaren Importer. Thrive in the Shadows is pretty good to pick up just in case he needs Hysteria on a stick. That is very useful.
It is pretty good. It's pretty good. I was wondering about the power word Fortitude, but I guess Sethic Veilweaver is unlikely to pop off to the extent where you can get it down to like 2 or 3 mana.
And already decision time for Posesi. Is he trading at all this game? Apotheosis is a card, but it was nerfed 2 patches ago, or was it 3? I don't know. So it's only gonna buff the Pandaren to 3 attack, which is still, 2 attack, which is not allowing it to trade down any of these minions 1-for-1.
Ooh. kind of like the Shadow Word Death, actually. I know that it's not hitting much in the deck. It's really just the Benedictus and the Merchant. But I think just having a contingency for exactly the Merchant is worth taking.
So the question is, do you think they're going to be in a position where the Merchant gets to 5 attack, which is 3 minions on board and they get to play it? That's not happening next turn unless they're going to coin a 1-drop. So that is a possibility. I'm still leaning towards studies. Maybe I've just gotten too conditioned from playing old Control Priest. But even if you just hit things like Crimson Hothead, that's more tempo, I feel. And it's pretty easy to activate with Desperate Prayer.
Yeah, no, this is, I suppose I'm letting Cast Division get to me here, because that could be a completely dead card for the rest of the game if you do pick Shadow Word Death. So I don't begrudge this at all.
Interesting draws for Posesi here. Like, coin 2-drops feels the most natural, but the Scorpid is pretty annoying. The health on this makes it such that just ping can't get through it.
It's so annoying. What are you going to do? Like, buff and then trade in your Kultiran? No, you have to hero power it, lose a minion, and then you're not even that far ahead on board. Like, it's not terrible at all. You can make some good plays with the Kultiran, maybe another Wriggling Horror. But he's not running away with the game as you would kind of need to do in this matchup.
Yeah, definitely not. Taking the board away, locking out Apotheosis possibilities, but man, Hysteria starts to look scary on the shape of board as well. It's all coming back to me, Derek. The Control Priest nightmares of not being able to play around every single removal they have.
Yeah, and then the Palm.
Raised Dead is honestly not the type of card Bankyugi needs right now. It's probably the only playable one, but he needs removal rather than those Scorpids and the Pandarans that generate more stuff right now.
Yeah, Focus Will, I mean, again, it is an answer to a Traveling Merchant. I don't know if I'm just focusing on that card too heavily, but I don't know. I've just lost to that one card so many times, it feels like, because it's so difficult to deal with in these early turns. And Raised Dead, it does get you Scorpid and Pandara, and it's a very good Raised Dead pool, but it's a fairly slow Raised Dead pool, and you don't necessarily have the comeback mechanisms quite yet. If he had a Zyrella or a Samuro in hand, absolutely I'd take that, but given the flimsiness of his removal, I'm kind of leaning towards the Focused Will as he took.
Okay, I'm just concerned whether Focus Will is enough of a removal, because it's really just taking off attack, right? You're still going to take 2 minimum from the Merchant. I felt like Bankyugi needed to dream a bit bigger and find a way to Hysteria, which I thought involved more Discovers. But maybe that's going to come in the form of Thrive in the Shadow instead. And Raised Dead, of course, is just going to damage him more, which even though he's at 29, he needs to be aware of his health total all the time versus Shadow Priest.
I wonder.
Okay, so if you start Aug Merchant, the Traveling Merchant is going up to a 6 attack minion?
Oh yeah. I mean, it dies to death either way, so let's just make it as big and juicy as possible, right?
Is there a better way to play around Hysteria? I don't really see it.
Trading it?
I think he miscounted his mana.
He miscounted his mana? No way!
No, Posesi, no!
Oh, Posa, no.
Quickly.
Oh, no.
We're past these days. We've evolved here in Asia Pacific. We learned how to count like 2 seasons ago.
It's so sad because this is retro Posesi from back in the day. But
this
he was
is
so
old
unformed
school.
last season. This Condemn's kind of dirty, huh?
Yeah, it is.
I guess it doesn't clear that much, but it's better than the rest of the options. And it wouldn't have cleared a Merchant. Okay. This is still salvageable, right?
Oh, very much so. Yeah. Like, if there's no board clears from Bankyugi, Posesi's still arguably winning. Like, you can just go for the Neophyte again, and this time play the Traveling Merchant alongside it. And it's fine, you know. A lot of the board clears are not available. Even Samuro Apo is still not possible, right? Even with the discount to Apotheosis.
Yeah, because of the Neophyte catch. Looks like Posesi's just abandoning the Merchant altogether, which, you know, he did see that Bankyugi really struggled to deal with the last board, which I think this just puts more power in play immediately. And better against, like, Samuro. Is it that better?
It's better against Hysteria. That's what he's constantly playing around here by not going with the Merchant, which I fully respect. Like, this turn he had such a strong play outside of it that I think it's perfectly reasonable. It plays around pretty much every strong board clear. Last turn I think it was just pretty much a straight up mistake, but that is a spicy top deck now. Lots of damage coming in, and this turn, oh yeah, I am absolutely playing a 3-mana 8/9.
That's a big boy, but this is also a Soul Mirror in hand. No more Neophyte played this turn, so also, Bankyugi's not naturally running one in the list, so Posesi probably has Hysteria top of mind rather than the Soul Mirror. But I'm not sure if there's a way to play around either of them, honestly.
I wonder.
Oh, I can't even imagine how Bankyugi must be feeling at this point. He went 0-2 in the first week. If he drops down here, he'll only have 1 point after the first 2 weeks, which is getting pretty scary already. He is praying, right, give me a Samuro so I can silence and heal up the board. Zyrella even is like, okay, it clears off a fair bit, because this Soul Mirror, as good as it is, it's not necessarily saving him in this game.
It's really not. Oh, that's like the worst draw in his deck.
That's awful.
Is he going fishing with the Sethek now? Soul Mirror just does not get there. It only clears 1 minion.
Yeah, even if he silences first or afterwards, it doesn't matter. He can't go Apo plus Soul Mirror.
Going Palm rather than Sethek Flash Heal. Wait.
Against all odds?
No, the Merchant is even. It's 8 attack.
Oh, no.
And the 2 in the middle are 4 attack as well. So it's very bad.
It just doesn't get there, does it?
He still has mana to do stuff with Sethek, but not much time. You have to take Flash Heal and just go off with Sethek, I'm quite sure. Right?
I don't even know what you can get, though. You just don't have mana. I mean, you're right.
Shadow or Death, and then he has Flash Heal to heal for... is it enough? I don't know. Maybe you silence Anti-Void Touched instead, and then you rip the Death for the Virgin.
Maybe, yeah.
And then you're still dead to hero power. I don't know.
He's got to go. He's got to go.
Like, get another Desperate Prayer at the end of it all. Something like that.
Yeah.
That's not it.
It's not enough, is it?
Whew. Wow. Posesi still just gets there with Aggro Priest. I thought this would be a terrible matchup, and he has Illusion.
My heart goes out for Bankyugi. That was a brutal one to lose. It was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. He won the Shaman Mirror. He was owed that series, if you want to go by the rules of queuing and counter-queuing. But I think, again, we are just cutting that cam just in time as Posesi is getting up from his chair there. I think this Control Priest, again, is showing that it just doesn't have the teeth it once had. These aggro decks that we're seeing nowadays, like, maybe it's still good against Face Hunter as, you know, a very much burn-based deck that you can try and out-heal with the double Desperate Prayer, that he's got there in the list. And maybe this was just an outlier in terms of the games. His hand wasn't fantastic, but it just feels awful to have your Control Priest perform so poorly in the one matchup it's supposed to win.
Yeah, that does feel very bad. I will say this is probably a below average draw for Bankyugi because he hit neither of the big AoEs in Blade Master Samuro and Zyrella, and never hit Hysteria, and also never hit Holy Smite, if I'm remembering correctly.
True, yeah.
But I will say, I think there are better decks from this meta that are positioned to deal with Shadow Priest. I don't know whether or not they're more consistent than Control Priest because we have this very small sample size, but when you take a look at the rest of the field, because there's gonna be times where you don't win the favorable or you've won the favorable and you want to give yourself the best chance to beat then what's gonna be their counter queue. I don't feel like Control Priest has very much other flexibility than that. So in terms of lineup building, even though the deck failed at the one job it was supposed to do and that made the deck look really bad, I don't think that's what we should be criticizing it for, if that makes sense.